Boxing King Media in association with Boxer With Me, TalkSport's very own. You're like the face of TalkSport now, aren't you, Spence Oliver?
Am I? I'm getting there, mate. I'm getting there. They're covering a lot of boxing, which is good, obviously, for the sport. They are invested a lot in that. They're doing the show actually on Saturday night as well, which is great. So make sure you tune into TalkSport. I think we're on from 9 till 11 p.m. Yeah, it's going to be a good night Saturday, by the way, as well. I'm looking forward to it.
Before we come on to the show on Saturday, I just want to go back to last week. We were there, Zhilei Zhang, devastating knockout of Joe Joyce. A lot of criticism coming towards Joe Joyce, Spence. Is it fair? Is it justified?
Listen, you've got to respect Joe Joyce for going into that immediate rematch. Because Zhilei Zhang, really, when you look at him, the size of the guy, southpaw, quick hands. We saw the fight that he had with Hrgovic, and you go, it was always high risk, low reward, that fight anyway. Joe Joyce was putting his WBO interim title on the line the first time that they boxed, and you go, why did you choose that opponent? And then what happened. We all put that down to the weight that Joe Joyce come in at. What was he, 18 stone 2 or something? Career best performance against Joseph Parker. The fight before that, in my eyes anyway, which was 19 stone 3. So I'm thinking, well, if Joe comes in a little bit heavier this time, if he's got that punch resistance that had clearly got in the first fight, you know, perhaps he'll do better. And as we saw the fight unfold, Joe Joyce comes in at what did he come in at? 20 stone 1 pounds. Zhilei Zhang recognised that. He come in at 20 stone 8. And from the opening bell, you could clearly see, now this is the worry for me, right? You could clearly see that Joe was going to have a hard night again, and from the second round, Zhilei Zhang put it on him. He recognised that actually Joe hadn't adjusted at all. Joe was moving around to the left, leaning back, trying to lean back, but Zhilei Zhang sort of, you know, he's got that adaptability, and he recognised that, set the trap, landed the left hand to the body, and that big right hook over the top. Good performance from Zhang. My worry is, has the punch resistance gone from Joe Joyce? You know, because people were tapping into that a lot, and I think that we've seen in previous fights, and against Daniel Dubois, an example, he was taking a lot of big shots on there, and he was walking through. Yes, Zhang's bigger. Yes, the shots that had landed were flush. But you do have to ask yourself, is the punch resistance going from Joe Joyce? You know, because you put a lot of miles on the clock, not just in the fights that you have, but what happens in the gym when you're sparring. You're in sparring sessions, and because of his style, they're always going to be hard sparring sessions. He's always going to be taking a lot of shots. So respect where respect's due for going into the immediate rematch, but it was a calculated gamble that never paid off. And you've got to ask yourself now, where does Joe Joyce sit? Where is he at? You know, for me, the ideal comeback fight really at this stage of his career would maybe be someone like Daniel Dubois, who's coming off that loss. If you appeal that Frank Warren's done for the Alexander Usyk fight, if that doesn't work, then maybe Joe Joyce, Daniel Dubois. Otherwise, you say, where does he go? Where does he sit? That was a massive, damaging loss. That was.
I mean, I want to read what Tony Bellew said. Tony Bellew said that Joe Joyce will lose to Fabio Wardley now. His punch resistance has gone. It's as simple as that. I don't think he'd beat the British champion. That resistance was the greatest asset. I'm sorry to say, I love Joe Joyce, but without the punch resistance, he's not above British level.
Look, so I understand what Tony's saying, because his main asset is the punch resistance. Now there's a massive question mark hanging over that because of the two Zhilei Zhang fights. Like I say, but if you only got to go one fight before that, when you look at Parker, and he soaks up a lot of stuff. But that happens overnight, you know, when you lose punch resistance and stuff like that. So I understand exactly what Tony's saying, but I think it's maybe a little bit harsh saying, you know, he wouldn't survive with people like Fabio Wardley and people like that. We're talking about elite here. Zhilei Zhang's proved that he belongs in that elite. If you look at, even going back to his amateur days, when he was Olympic silver medalist 2008 Beijing, 2012, he lost to Anthony Joshua in the quarterfinals, was on the seat of his pants, got up and fought back, and that was like, I think it was 15-11, the scorecards and that. So Zhang's a quality operator, and he proved still at 40 years of age, he's still a quality operator. So yeah, I think it's maybe a little bit unfair on Joe saying, you know, you're talking about Fabio Wardley's and people like that, but you've got to look at where he sits in the landscape right now. It's going to be a tough road back for Joe, that's for sure. And it's a shame that I'm talking like this, because I absolutely love Joe Joyce as a human being. He's one of the nicest guys you'll meet. He's honest, he's pure. Do you know what I mean? You don't really see that as much these days, you know, but Joe Joyce, you know, he's a nice guy. He's a nice guy. It's sad the way it ended.
A lot of talk. I saw Simon Jordan react as well to Frank Smith's comments about builders. You laughed about it. You said a few things as well.
Do you know what I laughed about? I laughed at, did you see Cole Froch fighting when he turned up with his builder's jacket on and his little hard hat and all that? Listen, it wasn't a great interview from Frank Smith, let's have it right. He's had a little bit of a stinker, if I'm honest, with his last couple of interviews, isn't he? It's, yeah, so, but it is what it is, yeah.
Conor Benn returned back on Saturday night. Did you watch it?
Yeah, of course I watched it. You know, yeah, it was one of those that you had to watch it, because obviously we're going to be talking about the fight afterwards. What do I take from the Conor Benn? Let's talk about the fight itself right now. I think it proved that Conor Benn's career, his future, belongs in at the 147 welterweight division. That's where his career is, because I think at 154 we could see that his opponent was way too big, you know, and he pushed him around, bullied him at times. But look, he got the rounds under his belt. He done what he had to do. He got the victory. Do I agree with it? No. I'm vocal about that. I'm open about that, because I think that, forget all the shit that I'm hearing from Frank Smith, etc. about, oh, listen, I know that, you know, people like myself and other people, you know, they just don't like the fact, you know, the way that they're dealing with things. He hasn't gone through the process because jurisdiction lifted the ban. The process is the British Boxing Board of Control, which he needs to face, you know, and UKAD, because they've appealed as well. So he needs to clear his name, and that's where we're at with it. That's why everyone keeps talking about it. And I know that Frank Smith said, well, actually, what's it to do with them? It's nothing to do with them. Well, actually, it is to do with us, because we're talking about the health and safety of the sport. And that puts a dark stain over the sport, that Conor Benn's gone out to Orlando, through jurisdiction, got the suspension lifted and the ban lifted, so that he's been cleared from that. But he's not been cleared from the 2 foul tests, and that's where we're at. And that's the thing that people are not letting go of. Myself, Cole Froch, anybody else within the boxing circles and the public, they're not letting go of it, because you're going on about it. It's not been cleared, jurisdiction lifted, and that's where we're at with it all.
Eddie's made his intentions clear. We won the Eubank Junior fight December 23rd, and they've also said that they've got offers from the Middle East if that fight can't happen in the UK. There could be ramifications for Chris Eubank Jr.
And everybody that involved, everybody that holds a British Boxing Board of Control licence. We have to see what happens with that appeal. I know that fight, it wouldn't. I know Eddie would like it on these shores, but I don't think it will land on these shores. Then it is a huge fight. You can't get away from that. It is a huge, monumental fight. At 160, Chris Eubank Jr. is a huge favourite going into that. Going off the back of what I saw at 154 against this unknown Mexican kid.
All right, Spence, I know you got to go. Appreciate your time, and yeah, let's see you on Saturday night after the fight.
Can't wait, mate, can't wait.
Spence Oliver, Boxing King Media, thank you.